Welcome to Meditations on the State of Education. This is pre-release content from the Future Education podcast brought to you by the University of the Universe. These are short vignettes, raw and minimal, overheard conversations, complaints, ideas for improvement, and meaningful stories. Listen closely, then share your thoughts on our socials as they go live. Today's snippet comes from my visit to the All-In Summit in Los Angeles, California from September 7th to 9th, 2025. It's among snippets from in and around the context of the gathering set near the USC campus. You'll also hear voices from outside the summit, such as a student reflecting on their own educational journey. The aim here is not polished production, but raw, unfiltered voices, real perspectives on what education is and what it could be. Our official launch of full production episodes is set for March 1st, 2026. You can subscribe now to stay in the loop and help shape this venture from its earliest stages into a foundation for powerful education for ourselves and our descendants for centuries to come. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen and for sharing a passion with us for the continuous improvement of education for centuries to come. Fac et meliora in aeterno. Do, make, create, and improve for all eternity.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself before we launch in here, where you're from, and kind of what your general interest here, why you're here at the event.
Yeah, my name is Benji Fages. Right now I'm building in the divorce space, and in terms of my motivation being here at All In is to meet really interesting folks and see how they think about the different content that's being discussed at the event, how they're innovating, and just to get some more energy around what I'm doing and broaden my horizons and my scope. My brief background is I grew up in Toronto, Canada, moved and immigrated to the US about 12 years ago, and I live in New York. Have touched a variety of different industries, whether that's the investment industry, pharma, and then now tech, and really trying to make the divorce experience better for folks.
So we're here at the All-In Summit, and Benji, you and I actually already just had some interesting conversation about education, the future of education, what's wrong with education, and I was going to say what's right with education, but we didn't even talk about that. I want to get opinions from smart people here at this event. So let's just start with that. What do you think is right? So my project here, Venture, University of the Universe, meant to create the education of the next millennium, to fix some of the problems. But let's start with, what do you think is right about the education system and the education that you found at the college and university level so far?
Yeah, I think the competitive and social dynamics of education are mostly good, albeit depends what your archetype and personality is. I went to a top university, and being among other folks who are highly motivated, who utilize very structured frameworks, different styles to how they approach their studying, tackling problems, I thought provided good guidance and blueprints of how to excel in your personal intellectual growth and applied intellectual growth. So I think that intersection of being hungry and seeing other great people performing great, I think the more opportunities you can have to be among others like that, I think is a really good, strong element. I think there's tension. I'm a Canadian, and I intentionally came to a university in the US because my school was a liberal arts school. There was a broader base of coursework that you could take rather than I was interested in science and pre-med at the point of time. Instead of being 95% science coursework was more broad. And I think opportunities to have that broader base where you're developing other elements of your intellectual foundations is really valuable. And so that paired with high quality domain specific studies, the more that's available is really valuable. I'd say those are components that are doing well. I did emphasize the value of competitive or aspirational motivation. I would say that the a pushback on that is, I think, the combination of how we structure our studies in terms of being at all times graded, where in theory grades have implications on your future potential, I think is a complicated one. I definitely am a big believer in standards and meritocracy and having clear measurement. That said, I believe at times the exploration and immersion and letting yourself follow whatever interest you have within a space and not feeling specific time-bound pressure to progress on your learning, I think there's room to rework that. Not the best solution, but a hypothetical solution is like, how do you have the right hybrid of classes where there's certain measurement in some, and in others there's more growth and self-direction. Those are some of my initial thoughts.
Yeah. So you mentioned the concept of classes, and we talked off the record here a little bit about how you kind of went through a whole traditional preparatory education for one career and then totally switched. And then really it became self-education at that point. What do you see as, if any, the value of the classroom versus what you just did or are in the midst of?
Yeah, I think my initial reaction to that is not particularly supportive of the classroom system. I think two dimensions that classes traditionally have are, you can again gather people in a social setting where there's several other people that attack things in different ways, and I think there's benefits to learning from other people's mindsets and how they're mentally processing. I also think historically classes have allowed you to pool more tuition together to get higher quality educators. That said, I think lots of the work that those educators were doing can be replicated in digital formats now that can allow them to be in asynchronously in a variety, reaching way more people. So I think that both of those are kind of like rendered not so critical anymore, and the classroom's maybe not the necessary vehicle for it. I think as a founder now, I am dictating my own schedule, and while I'm firmly working 7 days a week, almost every hour of the day locked in on my project, the ability to be flexible and adjust which tasks I'm working on and when I'm putting in my workout, when I'm eating, to flow with the best energy and the best ability to put that energy towards the right priority, I think is missing right now in the class system, because it's very rigid in terms of the times you're there, the place you have to be, and doesn't allow that alignment of the mentality one has at a moment, the energy one has at a moment. And in the traditional system, as you have these measurement activities like exams and are grinding away in preparation for them, the following day showing up exhausted to a class to learn while you're on fumes is a disservice to the educational opportunity that class presents. And so I don't think that's really thought out. We're really stuffing into a very rigid time and physical system how classes are oriented right now.
Yeah. I've talked about this with others too, and there's a lot of room for the University of the Universe to go in different directions. But right now, we're training people to sit at desks in front of computers, basically, as a means of contributing to society. And it's been proven that sitting at the desk is less healthy for you than smoking cigarettes, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of an odd pairing that you're sort of being trained and prepared for something that ultimately is not to your well-being.
Totally.
So it's just definitely something I've thought about. What if the future and actually the most productive way that we educate is towards exactly what you're saying, right? Towards actually people optimizing their flow of energy. taking into account neuroscientific studies that say, you should learn in blocks of 20 minutes max and take 5-minute breaks, or you should learn for something for 20 minutes, take a break, learn something totally different on a different topic, or go for a hike, right? Go for a run, lift some weights, right? Why not incorporate these type of things in the educational process, especially if the very education system that we're using through research has proven that these are great ways to learn and educate and be productive. So I'm totally in line with that. It's a very great point.
It's interesting that you say that, and I think there's definitely something there. Personally, I think my physical and then the attachment to mental wellness as critical foundations to high performance, and I believe that thoroughly. I do also believe I have a strong ability to lock in and focus, and I think, as healthy as I am, I don't like using a standing desk. You can't do certain things on a walk, and so being butt in seat, hands on keys in the current version of technology, I think is for many jobs very critical and for many tasks. Now, what of that can be transformed in a better way? Like my ideal product, if I could create any product in the world, it would be this outdoor, breezeless, glare-less, but fresh air and sun and direct sun controlled environment where you could set up your workstation totally in the outdoors, but with none of the nuisances. So we're not there yet, but if we can layer on ways like how do we create more of a healthy yet still locked in future, I think that would be exceptional. I do have a lot of skepticism though, in terms of some of these alternate models of structuring how we educate and do work. I do have empathy for other types of learners and people maybe with less attention spans than I do. But that said, I think some of my resilience and ability to perform has been me in the back of my head saying, hey, sit down, focus, lock in, and not utilizing crutches of, go on a walk and go get a snack and refresh. But going on a walk and going and getting a snack are important pieces of my nourishment to refocus. So all that to say, I would love to follow the science and make sure that the science is leading towards the best ways of working that are most dignified, energizing, but also best outcome oriented. Not taking the premise, we need alternate ways of working, and then being like, okay, what can we justify with science, if that makes sense?
Yeah, no. It's fascinating to hear your perspective.
What it is.
Do you want to talk about your project, like your company?
Sure, I would love to.
Looking for a co-founder here, I know. Right. Yeah. So tell me what that's about. We didn't actually get to talk about it yet.
Yeah. So in terms of
just step on the side. There you go.
Yeah, in much the same way that many people through their youth go through the education system and it's their first time and they're learning how to learn, they are learning what they want to do, and they're kind of just stumbling along trying to figure it out. There's another life moment where it's kind of you go through it for the first time and it's pretty challenging, and that's divorce. And I've observed family members, I've observed peers and just other people that I met, and it's a really challenging moment, one that's filled with confusion, emotion, big financial stakes, and people enter it and are looking for signaling to guide them through it, and they gravitate to lawyers, and sometimes that's a little bit more contentious than necessary, or they're looking for financial credentials to guide them through things, but maybe that's not the right thing for them. And so much in the same way that you're designing an educational system that really resonates with what's in individuals' best interest, which both has an objective component and a personalized element to it. What I'm hoping to build is the platform that helps people navigate divorce in the way that's right for them. And so with all the different facets of divorce, emotional, financial, legal, and whatnot, that people can get the guidance that's right for them, and that will be a combination of human, tech, AI that will guide people through it, but ideally helping people reach a more dignified and better outcomes future so that they can focus on rebuilding and being happy and not affecting their kids and not being stressed. So right now I've got some solid validation that there's definitely a problem here. Some of the product solutions that I've either brought to market or considering bringing to market could have some strong applicability, and I've got strong domain knowledge, very excited and passionate about this, but my core skill set is not as like a traditional engineer, and I would love someone who shares this passion to really transform the experience that more than 1 million people in the US go through every year for the better. Someone who together will co-learn about the problem, co-learn how we can really solve it, and really make an incredible transformation for all the folks who are affected by it. So hello everyone, if you're listening and this speaks to you or speaks to someone that you might know, I would love the introduction.